Today's topic, I'm going to discuss IRA withdrawals after 59 and a half. So in this video, I want to break down what is an IRA account, what are some effective IRA withdrawal strategies, what are the types of IRA accounts that an individual can leverage, and then how to create some sort of plan based on what your goals are. So helping you create the type of vision for retirement, looking underneath the hood off of your current situation, and then seeing if that is attainable, basically from your point A to your point B, if by staying on your current trajectory, you can find retirement success, or if there's slight tweaks that you want to make along the way or need to make along the way. So to get started, you'll notice that I have a bucket up on the screen. And this is ultimately how an IRA or any sort of account grows. It grows by contributions an individual places into their plan, and then the rate of return that's coming back. So when somebody's hitting age 59 and a half, they might have accumulated dollars into an IRA through contributions, meaning that they were placing over whatever the max contribution was for that year. If you're looking at from 2023 and you're below the age of 50, it's $6,500 a year. If you're above the age of 50, it's $7,500 max contribution per year. So typically what happens is when somebody's nearing retirement, they were working for different companies and either receiving 401k dollars or 401k savings, 403b savings based on whatever sort of employer that you're working for. And after you stopped working for that employer, you were taking those monies and rolling it over into an IRA. So you could have some IRA accounts that were created through contributions that you were, setting up for the last 10, 20 years, or you could create IRA accounts that you had rolled over from existing qualified retirement accounts. So this is ultimately adding positives into your bucket. Now, when you start nearing that 59 and a half range, and you say, hey, I don't want to put any more contributions into this, that's where this rate of return side is very important. And this is based on the different types of accounts that an individual can customize with their IRA. The beauty of an IRA is you have thousands and thousands of different customization opportunities. So if you want to create an IRA that's best for max income, you could do that. If you want to create it for max safety and something that's very liquid, that's not going to be invested in the market, you could do that. Or on the opposite side of the coin, you want something that's going to grow and something that's going to have a lot of risk and try to reduce your fees. That's another sort of account. So I'm going to go over the safety, income, growth, the different types of accounts an individual could leverage for their IRAs. But first, I want to take a slight step back, because when you start nearing that retirement stage, whether you want to retire at 59 and a half, or this just allows you to be eligible to start pulling out withdrawals, doesn't make sense to start taking monies from that age 60 marker until your ideal retirement date. So let's say if somebody wants to ideally retire at age 65, they're still working, they're going to be working for the next 5 years, but maybe they want to pull back on how many hours that they're putting into work. And they say, you know what, I've already had this large IRA account that's sitting here. I want to ladder my strategy properly. So I want to pull out $50,000 per year for the first 5 years from my IRA account, and then leverage. So I'm utilizing the $50,000 from the IRA as a type of laddering, plus whatever my employment income is. And then at 65, that's when I'm going to trigger Social Security income, and then anything else that I have with savings if I have to close up that gap. So there's a couple different ways to basically skin that cat. You could leverage laddering strategies. You could leverage a strategy where you just say, hey, I'm going to be working for these next 5 years or 7 years or whatever that case is, and I just want to be accumulating these dollars for these next 5 years so that at that 65, that's where I want all funnels coming to me. I want to receive Social Security income. I want to receive pension income. I want to receive income from my IRA accounts. Potentially, if I have rental properties, rental income, so that you're having more than enough income that's going to be greater than or equal to your expenses when you hit that retirement stage, or when you hit that point B. So I always talk about point A, point B. Point A is where you are right now. Point B is where you want to get to. Point B is going to be the ideal retirement vision. What do you want to essentially attain? So there's problems that come along with distribution strategies and preservation distribution strategies. And what I mean by that is the difference between accumulation mindset versus wealth preservation distribution mindset. When an individual was working and they had 10, 20, 30 years out from retirement, they were able to be very risky, to take on a lot of risk that would create a positive with that rate of return side. Because historically speaking, if an individual, let's say, was more risky and they were placing their monies in the market, well, the market's going to ebb and flow. So you're going to have positives to this rate of return side and negatives. Whenever that rate of return came back negative, it wasn't so much of an impact because there was a long time horizon where the individual said, okay, I understand the market's going to ebb and flow. There's going to be these different hiccups that are in there. So as long as I'm staying consistent with my contributions, the market should pick back up. So it was allowing them to beat out the pace of inflation and leverage that nice elongated rate of return strategy. It was more of an accumulation mindset. I'm accumulating my dollars to eventually get to that finish line to try to have the fattest bucket possible. The shift that needs to be made and the common mistake that occurs, individuals only understand the accumulation side. When they start nearing retirement, they're saying, okay, I understand this rate of return could be positive or negative. I'm just going to stick with the status quo. I'm just going to leave my money sitting in with investments. The problem is if they were still staying aggressive and they have a need to actually pull these monies out for income purposes, it could be devastation towards that individual's retirement account, towards that IRA account, and that's not creating the proper strategy. So what I mean by that is a term called reverse dollar cost averaging. So dollar cost averaging is a type of saving strategy where an individual can go and splice up and make systematic contributions into their account. So it's allowing them the potential to buy low, sell high, or always be getting into the market rather than trying to time the market. The opposite is true when it comes to reverse dollar cost averaging. So what's happening is when you're no longer making contributions, but now you're trying to take out systematic withdrawals from that account, it could be a detriment. What I mean by that is, let's say that we understand the IRA account grows by the contributions and the rate of return. I'm always going to drill that into your head just so you understand that very, very simple formula. Rate of return side. When you're no longer working and you're no longer contributing and now you're starting to hit your retirement years, this rate of return can be what? It could be positive or it could be negative. When it's positive, your bucket is getting larger. It's growing with the power of compound interest. When it's negative, think of it like somebody taking a sword and slicing your bucket. So if you decide to retire right when the market is going into a bear market cycle, like individuals that were, that wanted to retire in early 2000s and then they got hit with that lost decade, they were pulling monies from an account, which is a negative. They were getting fees on that account, which different sub-account related fees or expense ratios. They were also paying advisory fees, which is another negative. So all these different things are holes draining from the bottom of the bucket. And then on top of it, to add insult to injury, there was downward market performance. So rather than expecting that, okay, if I go and I pull out systematic withdrawals from this account, as long as I just leave my money invested, which is a growth strategy, they tried to utilize a growth strategy for income-related purposes. So if the market took a dip, it's the compound interest of the fees, of the withdrawals, of the advisory fee, and the downward market loss in a worst-case scenario. You always want to look at a worst-case scenario when it comes to retirement, because if you, excuse my language, fuck up during that time frame, it could result in you having to go back to work in your late 60s, 70s, 80s because you drained your well dry. So how exactly can you prevent that from occurring? Is understanding, okay, what are some of the problems out there? What are some of the mistakes to avoid? And then creating very simple strategies to pad up your accounts. To say, okay, if I need this money for income purposes, let me create a maximized income strategy, or let me leverage maximized income accounts to generate that income for me. If I want to utilize this IRA, not for distribution purposes, not for income purposes, let me make sure that I'm growing it in the most effective strategy, the most effective way. Maybe I want to leave some money for emergency. So I need to have access to these monies in case of an oh my gosh moment occurs. So I'm not just relying on systematic withdrawals, and I'm not just relying on a growth side. I also need a little bit of cushion in case of that oh my gosh moment was to occur. So that would be emergency related strategies or emergency related accounts held within IRA accounts. So this really simple explanation is just saying, can the rate of return skyrocket for every year past that point when somebody hits their 60s or 59 and a half and they're taking out withdrawals? Yes, it can be a successful play. But when that downside risk occurs, that's where the panic's going to set in. And that's where individuals understand, they get hit with the realization that, okay, I thought that as long as I'm only pulling out 4%, 5% of my income stream, I should be able to never outlive these monies, but I'm pulling out this 5% and I'm getting hit with these fees with an extra 2% between the advisory related fee and the expense ratio fee, and then the market dropped down 20%. That's now called a problem. And that's what we want to try to avoid. And by creating systematic processes it could help you accomplish your retirement need or retirement planning needs. So what you see up on the screen is safety, income, and growth. And these are three areas that any sort of account can grow into. What are some different sorts of savings or safety related accounts? Really think of them as your emergency needs. And those are going to be your checking, your savings account, your money market accounts, your shorter term bank CDs, really more your bank related products, or just non-invested cash positions if you have it sitting in an IRA. So from an IRA perspective, the different sorts of safety accounts could be your money markets, your shorter term CDs, and really those non-invested cash positions. If it's the non-qualified accounts, it's going to be really more of your savings checking, and then any of those variations of products or accounts that I just mentioned. The income related accounts, these are different sorts of accounts that could generate income. So these are going to be your stock dividends. These are going to be your bonds, your annuities. You have to be very careful when it comes to annuities. Annuities can be fantastically used tools for the income side, or it could be complete devastation if you get set up in the wrong ones that are going to restrict your liquidity, going to give you an inferior rate of return. So there's a few different mechanisms based on your state, based on your age, on how you could properly ladder annuities and leverage the lifetime income play, really the insurance to produce you lifetime income. But you could use a combination of those different sorts of accounts. So once again, the stock dividends, the bonds, annuities, and then you have REITs, real estate investment trusts. Also, if let's say you have assets, non-qualified assets of a home, and that's generating some sort of cash flow, some sort of income, that could be different income-related assets or income-related accounts as well. And then you have your growth-related accounts, which are really everything else. This is where you get a little bit of fun with your, have a little bit of fun with your accounts. And this are saying, I want this tailored towards my growth-related strategy. The most important aspects are going to be creating a strategy for income and safety. Because when it comes time to retire, you need to rely on your income needs and create some sort of baseline to make sure that your income is going to be greater than or equal to your expenses. If your income is not greater than or equal to your expenses throughout retirement, well then, and you drained your well dry, you drain down all of your different assets, well then that means you have to go back to work, or you have to have a significant lifestyle change of downsizing, of reducing whatever your expenses are, and it may not be what you ideally saw as your dream retirement scenario. The growth side is really just everything else. So these are your mutual funds, your growth-related stocks, your ETFs. You could have some of your longer-term bonds or longer-term fixed annuities, longer-term fixed indexed annuities. This could be speculative investments such as cryptocurrencies. So there's a whole multitude of different things that could kind of lie in that growth-related bucket. If we're looking at from an IRA perspective, pretty much anything in the growth-related buckets you could create within an IRA account. Anything with the income-related bucket you could create within an IRA account. And then, majority of it in the safety account, minus checking savings, you could create within an IRA account. So you could still have that sort of savings, checking savings mechanism with non-invested positions. But these are how any sorts of accounts can be created with an IRA, which sounds like a lot, but when you're trying to scale back off of your ideal retirement scenario and your ideal retirement dream, it makes things very simple when you're just breaking it down to safety. Is this a safety bucket? Is this a safety tool? Is this an income tool? Or is this a growth-related tool? Which one should I leverage for this specific need? So now when you're trying to create a strategy or create some sort of plan, you need to at least create some sort of roadmap to get there. So first off is your retirement vision. What do you ideally see as your retirement? Does that mean you want to golf every day or a few times a week? You want to go on vacation? You and your spouse want to travel the world for the first 5 years, or just throughout the country for the first couple of years? You want to be very close to your grandkids or your kids? What exactly is that dream scenario? And I always talk about this, or I've been recently talking about this on the deathbed scenario. So if you, as morbid as it might sound, if you picture yourself on a deathbed and you're looking up at all your family members and you're thinking back on your life, are there any sorts of regrets that you may have? Whether you're in your 70s, 80s, whenever that point in time does occur. If there are regrets, what are those regrets that you're seeing in your subconscious mind? And then that's how you could kind of itemize your list as your ideal retirement scenario. Yes, I wanted to make sure that I spent this much time, with my family, or I wanted to make sure that I saw these beautiful sights, and that was something that was important to me. I just wanted to, make sure that I was, always pushing myself and being as athletic as possible when I did hit that retirement stage. So it's going to be a different answer for every individual, but create that vision feel it, taste it, touch it, really picture yourself into that scenario, and then say, okay, this is exactly what I see. From there, then it comes down to itemizing, what those expenses are. So maybe if that means traveling the world, then you want to, increase your expenses by an extra 10, 20,000. Can you at least hit that goal? Or maybe if you want to take a trip, rather than take multiple trips throughout the course of the year, maybe, sacrifice one trip throughout the course of the year. So that might be a couple of grand more than what your expenses are on an annual basis. So there's a whole slew of different ways on how to do that. But the first step is creating that vision, creating that retirement dream. Second step is looking underneath the hood off of your current situation. And then the third step is try to implement a plan to make sure what you're currently doing right now can accomplish that dream. If it can't, what tweaks do you have to make? So this is where the acronym of DIET comes in. The D stands for distribution planning or distribution strategies. When you hit retirement, be mindful of how important income is, because if you don't have income in retirement, you don't have a retirement. When you fast forward and you ideally want to stop working, where you're not going to be generating this income from your occupation, what does that scenario look like? And then what are your income sources at that point? So what's your Social Security income? Do you have pension income? Do you have rental property income? Do you have income created through income distribution strategies, like I was mentioning with that income related bucket? What are all these different income sources, these different spigots that are coming to you? Based on what that calculation is when you stop working, let's say somebody ideally wants to retire at age 65, we know that this is going to be X amount of number. Is this number greater than or equal to what that person's expenses are? If it is, excellent. Now you can move on to that step 2, which is more for the investment growth related strategy. So whatever you're not using up for your distribution planning needs, if there's a gap there between your Social Security and pension income and you don't have any other plan in place and your expenses are higher than those two, then you have to leverage your other assets to close up that gap, to create that proper IRA withdrawal strategy to close up that gap. So that's where you'd be utilizing those income-related strategies, the income-related bucket with your customized IRA to do this. And there's a few different ways on how to do that. Like let's say somebody's age 60 and they want to start scaling back on their work, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video. Maybe that might mean taking out systematic IRA withdrawals as they're still working part-time to get them to that age 65, because they know at 65, this is when Medicare is going to kick in, and this is when I ideally want to trigger Social Security at that point, so I could at least ladder my dollars that way. Or maybe it's the individual that just wants to work up until that point where they say, I was working, I just want to cut cold turkey at this ideal retirement age. Well, then now you have those years to create that proper IRA withdrawal strategy to say, okay, this IRA account is going to compound for these next few years, and then I'm going to create a maximized income play at that point B marker. And then how everything gets tailored in there. Like case in point is, let's say someone's trying to trigger IRA withdrawals and then they're also taking out monies from Social Security income and they're also working. That can affect how much your Social Security income payment is and also your Social Security income taxation. So you want to be very careful with your distribution strategy, make sure that everything's in line. So once you're able to create an income strategy and you also have an emergency, really a safety bucket set up, which is rule of thumb about 3 to 12 months of whatever your expenses are, should at least leave into some sort of liquid account that you could access at any point in time in case of that oh my gosh moment. Once you create that distribution need for the safety, for the income play, then you can move on to step 2. Step 2 is really your growth monies, your ancillary dollars. These are my fun accounts. These are my monies that if the market's going to ebb and flow and these accounts are going to ebb and flow, it's not going to hurt my overall retirement success because I've already created my baseline. So there's a multitude of different things, and the I could be more of those investments or those growth, really that growth related bucket that I was mentioning. The E would be set up for an individual that wants to, that cares about leaving monies to their beneficiaries. So they're saying, I want to make sure that, if something happens to me, I want to make sure my spouse is okay. If something happens to me and my spouse, I want to make sure that my kids or grandkids are okay. So this is where estate planning would come in. Sometimes it's important to individuals, sometimes it's not. It really depends upon their specific situation. And then the T is tax planning, where you could be leveraging Roth conversions, different things to make sure that your Social Security income is going to be less taxable if you're utilizing the proper tax-free income strategies in conjunction with your Social Security income strategy. So that's ultimately where we help individuals. We have the trademark process, which is the retirement diet plan, but an individual could also do it on their own. They could say, okay, how exactly can I create this effective strategy from my distribution side, from my investment growth side, from my estate planning side, and then my tax planning needs. And then each area has to be effective and efficient so that you're making sure that everything's optimized towards its specific lane rather than use a jack of all trades type scenario. So like as an example with the safety income growth, you don't want to use your safety related accounts for a growth related play. And you don't want to use a growth related account for a safety or an income related play. You don't want to use your income account for a safety and a growth related play. So you want to make sure that each one is sticking to its lane so that everything is optimized effectively. And that could be the difference of when I was talking about the wealth accumulation versus distribution strategies. When somebody has that accumulation mindset and still leveraging their growth related needs, that's where you hear things such as like the 4% rule, or that's even been debunked, that if you want to leave your money invest in the market in a moderate portfolio, you have to pull out less monies than 4% per year, which is just garbage. If you create the proper income strategy, that number could be receiving cash flow numbers of guaranteed 8%, 10% if you're doing it the right way and you're leveraging the correct cash flow related tools, cash flow related accounts, cash flow related products, so that you're able to grow your monies effectively. The problems that typically occur, everybody's trying to utilize one sort of area, one sort of account. So they're taking all their money and they're placing it towards one strategy. And that's not a strategy. That's nothing more than a portfolio. By creating a plan, you're basically leveraging all your portfolios and you're making sure that's segmented properly. At any point in time, if you do want help with your specific situation and have us walk you through the retirement diet process, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. That's 1-800-566-1002. You go to our website at fosseyfinancial.com or retiresharp.com, and you could schedule an appointment that way, or by calling the 800 number, which we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could reference this video. Lastly, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave some feedback. It definitely helps the channel, helps grow the channel. And I just want to thank you very much for watching this video, and look forward to speaking with you.